Hello, everyone. You are welcome here, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what your background. You are welcome here to join us as we proclaim worth in our spiritual journeys. You are welcome to join us as we sing songs that uplift our very beings. You are welcome to join us in community as we learn, live, and love together. All are welcome as we gather thinking about that which gives each of us meaning and value. No matter what you call this virtual reality, this hour, this gathering of people, come as a body illuminated by the light of the chalice.
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Our story for all ages today comes from Reverend Jim Macomber.
Hello. I wish everyone a very happy Mother's Day. I'd like to open with a lighthearted poem, one from the late Shel Silverstein, who seems to be pretty popular in these parts. If you're familiar with his poems and drawings for children, then you know they hold considerable wisdom for adults too. This one is titled Ma and God. God gave us fingers. Ma says, use your fork. God gave us voices. Ma says, don't scream. Ma says, eat broccoli, cereal, and carrots. But God gave us tasties for maple ice cream. God gave us fingers. Ma says, use your hanky. God gave us puddles. Ma says, don't splash. Ma says, be quiet, your father is sleeping. But God gave us garbage can covers to crash. God gave us fingers. Ma says, put your gloves on. God gave us raindrops. Ma says, don't get wet. Ma says, be careful and don't get too near to those strange, lovely dogs that God gave us to pet. God gave us fingers. Ma says, go wash them. But God gave us coal bins and nice dirty bodies, and I ain't too smart. But there's one thing for certain. Either Ma's wrong or else God is. Bonnie?
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the light of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the light of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. And now for some words of wisdom.
Julia Ward Howe, a 19th century Unitarian poet and peace advocate, organized the precursor to the modern Mother's Day in 1870, some 150 years ago. She's perhaps best known for composing the Civil War song, The Battle Hymn of the Republic. As the United States emerged from that period of intense conflict and crisis, many reform efforts took shape. Life was never going to be the same, and most everyone knew it. Just as we now know that life in this country will become significantly different when our current crisis reaches some sort of resolution. Ms. Howe put much of her effort into the women's suffrage movement after those crisis years, and a part of that was her Mother's Day of Peace, which came to be celebrated in many cities in the 1870s. Then, as now, social reforms came slowly, but Ms. Howe never lost her resolve to empower women as a compelling force for peace, and to have a day set aside for both honoring mothers and demonstrating for peace. She died in 1910, some years before President Woodrow Wilson proclaimed the second Sunday in May to be Mother's Day. And a couple years later, suffrage came to be. Somewhere along the line, our friends at Hallmark became involved, and of course that really got the ball rolling away from demonstrating and more toward honoring. I hope that Julia Ward Howe's story inspires modern day Unitarian Universalists to take leading roles in the social and economic justice reforms that will likely materialize after the end of our current pandemic crisis. Let me share an excerpt from her powerful Mother's Day proclamation, written for that first American Mother's Day 150 years ago. Arise then, women of this day. Arise, all women who have hearts, whether your baptism be that of water or of fears. Say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We women of one country will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence indicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council. Let them meet first as women to bewail and to commemorate the dead. Let them solemnly take counsel with each other as the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, and each bearing after her own time the sacred impress, not of Caesar, but of God. Please join me in a moment of silence. And amen.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in thy The special music that I've chosen today is a song called Music in My Mother's House. And it's a song that speaks of how I grew up, actually. We had so much music, my grandparents and my aunts, uncles, cousins, we all played an assortment of different instruments. And so this song really talks about growing up with music. There were wind chimes in the window, bells in the music clock, an organ in the corner, tunes in the music box. We sang while we were cooking or working in the yard. We sang although our lives were really hard. There was music in my mother's house. There was music all around. There was music in my mother's house, and my heart still feels full with the sound. She taught us all piano, but my sister had the ear. She could play the harmony to any tune she'd hear. Now I don't play much talent, but I always love to play, and I guess I will until my dying day. There was music in my mother's house. There was music all around. There was music in my mother's house, and my heart still feels full with the sound. The days came back so quickly, although I'm far away. She gave me the kind of gifts I've always loved to give away. And when my mother died, and she'd sung her last song, we sang in the living room, singing all night long. There was music in my mother's house. There was music all around. There was music in my mother's house, and my heart still feels full with the sound. Yes, my heart still feels full with the sound. The offering for the work and welfare of this church will now be given and received. Please go to our website, uutarpon.org, to donate, or send a check to 57 Reed Street. The entire address is there upon the screen. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. message today is from Reverend Jim.
Thank you, Bonnie. It seems to me that a risky thing to do in a Unitarian Universalist congregation is to assert that we are really all alike. We do value our diversity, don't we? Yet I can, with no risk, cite one commonality among us all. Each of us, every one of us, has or had a mother. Women somewhere at some time became pregnant with us. They carried us, they gave birth to us, and they suffered considerable discomfort and pain in so doing. They are or were our biological mothers. Since every one of us owes our existence to a biological mother, it is entirely appropriate that we honor them or their memories on this Mother's Day. Many of those biological mothers also raised us. They nurtured us. They educated us. They read to us. They clothed us. They loved us. And they taught us how to love. Of course, they also liberally laid down the law with an artful blend of "you had better" and "you had better not" commands. You know, you had better brush those teeth, and you had better not forget to say thank you. Shel Silverstein would have us believe that many of these commands seem to violate natural laws. I mean, why should I eat that green stuff on my plate? And why shouldn't I make a huge splash in that lovely mud puddle? But now that many of us have matured a bit, we have come to see that being a mother is actually a process filled with complex tasks and responsibilities. However, not every one of us here this morning was raised or nurtured by a biological mother. Some of us lost our biological mothers early on, or we became somehow estranged from them. But that does not mean that no one was there for us. You see, I have every faith that we Unitarian Universalists are sensitive, compassionate, loving people. Someone must have nurtured us, else we would not have gotten here. And so today is a day to honor our biological mothers and anyone else who helped see to it that we became human beings committed to the greater good. Those nurturing people may have been fathers, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, grandparents, teachers, friends, and so forth. Perhaps such people took the place of our biological mothers, or perhaps they augmented our own mothers' efforts. In either case, it is a good day to honor them as well. And if that seems a little strange, perhaps the noun or title mother should be considered a verb instead. The infinitive becomes to mother, the participle mothering. The verb would carry many definitions in the dictionary. To mother means to birth, to nurture, to teach, to love, to provide, and I'm sure each of us could add many others. To mother, in other words, is to do the work of raising our children into responsible, loving adults. I have been fortunate. My biological mother provided most of the mothering that I needed. And I see now that it was not exactly an easy assignment. Yet it is easy to look back and see that she had help from a number of other people, people I'm related to, people I'm connected to, and even some people I don't really remember very well. As I have been writing this, I have been thinking about my mother. She must have worked very hard, but she's gone now. I'm willing to bet most of you have been giving thought to your mothers too, or perhaps you've been contemplating someone else who undertook mothering on your behalf. Or maybe even a whole cluster of nurturers has occupied your mind, and that's fine. Toward the end, my mother began to slow down rather dramatically. She seemed in some ways to be a different woman from the one who nurtured me early on in life. She lost mobility. She had artful handwriting, but could no longer read it because of the macular degeneration. The arthritis in her hands kept her from sewing or playing her piano. She so loved to play. Debussy was her favorite. But she was still mom. And even now that she has passed, she is still mom. I am quite sure that as a child, I had no conception about how my mother or father would age. But over the years, they both nurtured my brother and me, and there were some rough spots along the way. Mom stayed the course. And today is a day set aside for me to honor her memory. Some of us have been mothered by someone other than our mother. I'm reminded of the Victorian novel, Peter Pan, a story we probably all remember. Well into the story, Peter Pan asks Wendy Darling that about he and his band of lost boys needing a nice motherly person. Wendy easily slips into character and says, ordering really, "Come inside at once, you naughty children. I am sure your feet are damp. And before I put you to bed, I have just time to finish the story of Cinderella." Discipline and loving attention at the same time. Later in the novel, even Captain Hook's antagonists come to treasure Wendy. One asks, "Could we not kidnap these boys' mother and make her our mother?" You see, the market for mothering is insatiable. I submit that we have all been mothered, perhaps by our mothers, perhaps by someone like Wendy Darling. For many of us, they are gone from our lives. What we have today, Mother's Day, may be only a memory. Nevertheless, memories of those who mothered us are just as important as the mothers who are still with us. If you are fortunate enough to still have your mother or one who mothered you along the way, you can tell them directly, one more time, how much you appreciate their efforts. Mothering, you see, is a timeless sort of activity. It's been going on for millennia and will continue for millennia to come. So let us think of our own mothers and those who mothered us, who nurtured us during the formative years when we needed all the loving guidance we could get and usually didn't know it. Let us honor mothering and all that verb entails. So might that be, and amen.
And for our final hymn, When I Am Frightened. When I am frightened, will you reassure me? When I'm uncertain, We will now extinguish our chalice. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. And now for our closing words.
May we hear the melody of life and find ourselves singing harmony. May we be open to the dissonances in the song of the land and its people, that we might be part of the world, urging toward justice, peace, and love. May we feel in our bones the rhythms of life and the land and find ourselves dancing. Thank you to all of you who have worked so hard to bring this service together. The list grows each week. When I look at it all together, its beauty brings tears to my eyes. Thank you. Announcements. As usual, please check the website, the quill, and the e-news for updates and all the new additions that are there each week. Go now in peace, stay well and safe.